Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Blitzkrieg, our own strategic affairs show. The recent DDC elections in Kashmir meant a lot of things to a lot of people. For the common Kashmiri, it represented grassroots democracy at work, the nuts and bolts of democracy. For the Indians, they looked at this entire election with a mixture of awe and surprise that something could go on at this level in Kashmir without any violence at all. And yet for the Pakistanis, it meant something totally different. Today, on the first show of our year, we have Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain, former Co-Commander 15 Corps and also Chancellor, the Central University of Kashmir. Sir, Jai Hind, Happy New Year and a very warm welcome to our show, sir.
Jai Hind, Gaurav, and a Happy New Year to you and to all our viewers. What a pleasure to be on the first show of the year with you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, 2020 saw, the frequency of anti-terror operations go up and the army and the security forces as such met with a lot of success in 2020. And yet, this entire thing was eclipsed by what is happening along the LAC, along Eastern Ladakh, etc., generally in the 14 core area, sir. Now, my question to you is, have the strategic analysts actually missed out something in this entire, counter-terror operations here, what's happening in East Ladakh there? Have they missed out something, sir, something very important?
Yes, Gaurav, when two important things are going on simultaneously in the military domain of India, that's in Ladakh on the line of actual control and in the Kashmir region, obviously there will be a competition for attention, for eyeballs from both these areas. No doubt the LAC took the complete priority for the moment because it was conventional operations, the threats were very high, and Kashmir we have seen for the last 30 years the way it has been going on. Well, a few issues definitely appear to have been missed out or maybe not focused upon to such an extent as far as the analysts are concerned. Number one, that while the intensity of operations was high in Kashmir, in the hinterland, it was very low on the LOC, which meant that infiltration was very, very low comparatively. I'm told a number of, I think there were 32 infiltrators who managed to come across, and attempts were also comparatively lesser. Also, the nature of operations in the valley were of a different kind. Terrorists were not seeking encounters. We saw this in the heyday when terrorists used to actually come out in ambushes, they used to try and actually fire at you very proactively and things like that. This time the terrorists were generally on the run. And it showed that the dominance of the Indian Army and the security forces in Kashmir is complete. The other thing, the other important aspect is that many of the attempts which were going on as far as the separatists and the terrorists were concerned did not succeed at all. For example, attempting to bring the operations from South Kashmir to North Kashmir completely failed. There was due to a lack of leadership completely. Secondly, there was a sudden change in terms of the use of drugs and a widespread movement of drugs all over Kashmir. It seemed as if suddenly drugs had become the financial kind of replacement for money all of a sudden. So this is something which had to be taken note of. And also the fact, which is important of course, which was noticed, is the fact that there were very few mob type of demonstrations or turbulence on the streets, primarily because there was a complete lack of leadership. And the last very important thing is that the terrorist recruitment of youth from South Kashmir in particular, which had been very high in the preceding years, went extremely low in the last year. And these are all therefore very, very positive signs.
Absolutely, sir. Now, sir, when in 2019 on the 5th of August, when India revoked Article 370 and 35A, sir, to say that Pakistan was shell-shocked would have been an understatement. So it went into this flurry of activities, sir, downgrading diplomatic ties with India, etc., sir. And there was an attempt to create hype all over the world, though pretty unsuccessful, if I may say that. Now, sir, it's not likely to sit back and accept the current situation as it is, though it has been, trying very hard to do something. Sir, do you think these successful DDC elections which have been conducted, do you think Pakistan would still try and revive separatism in the valley? What strategy could Pakistan or the Pakistan Army adopt in Kashmir after these DDC elections, sir?
You see, as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, for Pakistan, it is a do or die affair. There's no doubt that whatever India may do, whatever advantage India may finally accrue to itself through its decisions, Pakistan may be at a disadvantage, but it will always attempt to bounce back. This has happened through the last 30 years. We have seen through the whole process has been extremely dynamic. There are various domains in which Pakistan attempts to carry out its strategy. You've seen one is, of course, the whole domain of violence, the use of sub-conventional violence, that's the use of terrorists, etc. At the same time, there is the information domain, which Pakistan is very, very adept at. The third thing is the aspect of influence and interference in political activities inside Kashmir. And then the whole aspect of networks, the spreading of networks, which allows Pakistan to exploit from one angle or the other. For example, media networks, financial networks, and things like that. So what we have been witnessing actually after the 5th of August 2019 is that the sub-conventional violence has been very largely under control, manifested by the fact that there has hardly been mob turbulence or street turbulence anywhere. The quality of operations also conducted by the terrorists have been very low. Infiltration has also taken a backseat. But when it comes to other activities, influence operations, perhaps low at the moment because of the fact that 4G is down, mobile internet is down at the moment, deliberately kept down. Political activities because there has been no grassroots politics in Kashmir for the last 1.5 years or so. And we haven't even heard the whole aspect of radical ideology. What has really happened to it? Has there been a downturn? Has there been a dilution of that in Kashmir? Because this is one of the things which Pakistan had hyped up in a very big way. So except in the domain of sub-conventional violence, in every other domain, there is potential still. And from that direction, Pakistan can always try and attempt to bring an upsurge in violence once again, if the networks are all active. Now, one thing which India has been able to achieve very, very effectively, very efficiently, is the neutralization of many of these networks. It's not, the whole job is not done yet completely. There's a lot of scope to do more, but I think for the first time in many years, our agencies have been very effective in doing this. So I would say that advantage is with us, definitely. The situation is far, far better than what it was ever, perhaps. But as we say, the absence of violence is not normalcy. And therefore, we should always be prepared. We should always be prepared that there will be an attempt, some strategy would be at the moment in the process of being formulated to try and bounce back. We have been surprised many times in the past. Particularly now at this time, one other activity which is of importance is that there is activity taking place on the line of actual control. China is also militarily trying to coerce India. Pakistan may be much more emboldened because of that. Perhaps in the fond hope that our response may be tempered because of the presence of the PLA in our northern borders. So I think we have to be still very, very careful. We haven't gone past the danger point yet.
So we've been congratulating ourselves in India. So we've been congratulating ourselves about the successful conduct of these elections and that they were carried out very professionally. There was almost, zero violence during these elections. How big a deal is this actually, and how will it positively impact the scenario in J&K for India?
See, Gaurav, these elections, first of all, I think a clearer understanding must emerge for the viewers that these elections are actually something in between the assembly elections and the Panchayati Raj elections. First of all, this concept of the DDCs does not exist anywhere else in India. It is only in Kashmir that this whole experiment is being carried out at the moment. Of course, it will improve grassroots politics. It will improve grassroots governance and development. The program, people will get more involved with the programs themselves in the creation of the planning process itself. All this is for efficiency of governance. There's no doubt about it. The other very interesting and important aspect is that these elections have come as an interim kind of a democratic process between the Panchayat elections which took place last year and also the assembly elections, which are likely to take place only after the delimitation is carried out, which is likely to take place sometime in the year 2022 or maybe 23. So, keeping that aspect in mind, I think this was a very brave step, a very innovative step to keep the democratic process going and keep the people motivated. Now, having said that, and the fact that there has been no violence also during these elections, it does signify that the democratic process has been very successful, but it does not in any way somehow create a situation where anything has changed from the past. We find that the elections are exactly as the results which used to be in the past. That means those parties in Kashmir have gained their seats in Kashmir. Those parties which had to gain the seats in Jammu have gained them there. The in-between area of the Pir Panjal and the Chenab Valley, there is a political competition for both of them. So the situation is almost the same. Not much has changed. Besides that, Jammu and Kashmir, the two segments, somehow don't see eye to eye. The people are not meeting each other. The people are, generally appear to be angry with each other. Now, unless more efforts are made towards bringing these people together and trying to have some kind of consensus politics, I think the exercise of the DDC elections may not be as successful as we may perceive it to be. So I am very hopeful that in the near future, there will be a change. The change can be anything. It can be one party probably succeeding to a greater extent in the valley. For example, the BJP is succeeding there, or the National Conference succeeding in Jammu, or any such activity which shows that there is a little more consensus in terms of the regions coming together in their overall political thinking. Unless that happens, taking this next steps forward, and defeating the external influence, defeating radicals, defeating separatism which is existent inside the valley, that is going to be a difficult take.
The next question is going to bring a smile to your face, sir, because we have seen this so many times. Whenever the levels of violence go down in Kashmir, sir, there are these whispers saying that the army should hand over the IS grid to the CAPFs and go back to managing the LOC and the LAC, sir. Conventional threats. Your opinion, please, sir.
Well, I've seen this demand many times before. We have fallen victim to this, not entirely to the aspect of handing over the gift, but we have fallen victim to this demand of moving troops the moment there is a drop in the levels of violence in a particular sub-region in Kashmir. And I would not like to see that happen, definitely. But the fact that the LAC is alive in Ladakh and that the conventional threats have definitely gone up. There's a need for troops on the borders. We have deployed reserve troops already on the borders. All this leads you to think that there is some rationale in the demand that the army needs to go back to its main responsibilities, and that is conventional threats on the line of control and the LAC, and leave the hinterland to the CAPFs who are equally trained for that. But having had the experience of Kashmir for many, many years, I would say I would go back to the same old adage which I used in the beginning: the absence of violence is not normalcy. Normalcy means many things. The absence of networks, the presence of positive political grassroots activity, the freedom of people to be able to move around comfortably without being coerced and influenced by anti-national elements. All this is a part of all this. I think it may be a little early yet for us to start considering this. I would like to give it a longer time, stability in the hinterland. The counter-infiltration grid, of course, you cannot take away from the Indian Army. They are the ones who handle it best. And I can't see the possibility of CAPS being deployed in the immediate vicinity of the LAC for this kind of an activity, or the LOC for this kind of an activity. So whatever model which emerges, I'm sure will be a very optimum model, keeping all our experiences in mind. But my opinion at this time perhaps may be a little too early to consider withdrawal of the army.
Sir, do you think that the situation in J&K is firmly in our control, seeing the fall in the levels of violence. And, are we taking the correct long-term approach, sir? Could there be a rekindling of the situation in J&K by adversaries? Do you feel that is a possibility?
We alluded to this partially when we spoke about the potential of Pakistan. Can it come back? Will it strategize to try and reinvigorate the whole terrorist grid and separatism within Kashmir, bring in more radical ideology, influence the people? Well, as I said, that potential still remains. It does remain. It's not as if Pakistan has vaporized and all the terrorist training camps have suddenly evaporated, or the launch pads have all disappeared. Everything is intact. Everything there is still intact across the line of control, including the intent. So actually nothing has changed. What has changed is definitely inside our territory, inside our side of the line of control. Things have changed. We have better control, better capability. We have marginalized separatists. We have marginalized the terrorists to a very great extent, the networks to a great extent. But as I said earlier, the potential continues to remain. Are we taking the right steps to ensure the continuity of this? Are we taking the right steps to look at a long-term strategy towards that? I'm not so sure. I think the steps that we are taking are generally correct. The government is giving the right directions on this. We are moving towards a very strong democratic process, building up towards that again. But whether we are looking at a situation 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, I don't think we have done enough, perhaps, of scenario building. In strategic studies, in strategic analyses, one of the major things is to build scenarios. And I think this is something which needs to be done by us. It's not that one would fault the leadership or anyone. I think we have just not had the time to do it. Our attention has been so short-sighted, not short-sighted, but in terms of short-term gains at the moment. Now we got to start looking at the long-term gains. And I think for that, scenario building and analysis and exercises jointly between different forces, organizations, and political leadership would probably lead to good results.
So you've always maintained that the center of gravity of this proxy conflict is actually the people of Jammu and Kashmir, so to say, and people-centric operations and environment. A large segment of people, are alienated, and the other segments want nothing to do with them, sir. Typically, that is the attitude. Typically, that's how people behave. Is this a real challenge, sir? And can the army evolve anything innovative to resolve this issue, sir?
See, we always say that this is a hybrid conflict. And hybrid conflicts, proxy hybrid conflicts, sponsored by an adversary from the other side, needs a response which is what is called an all-of-government approach, which means every department of government has to fight it. For far too long in the 30-year campaign which has happened, only the army was left to fight this, or the security forces. The Jammu and Kashmir police was doing a great job. The CAPS were doing a fine job with us. The RR and the army were doing a great job. They were all fighting the counter-violence. That's what they were looking at. At the same time, they were also following the basic principles of counterinsurgency and counter-terrorism, and that is winning hearts and minds, attempting to do military civic action to win back many of the people. Now, that is fine. It's a very important aspect of tactical operations. But I don't think this whole idea, this whole strategy of treating the people of the region as the center of gravity has really gone into the depth of understanding, in our understanding. Because if it had, then you would have found a greater emphasis and greater focus of all of government approach on it. Here it was Operation Sadbhavna. You have a budget for it, so you do some good things for the population, medical, education, a few national integration tours, some sports activities and things like that. Okay, this has gone on for the last 23 years and very, very successfully, no doubt. But I think you need to upgrade the level now. This can't be an army exercise. It cannot be a police level exercise. This has to be a national exercise. And therefore, I think the state government has to take greater ownership of this. And the army and the security forces must work in conjunction with them. and bring a much greater footprint for impact on the psyche of the people through that. The aspect of psychological and information operations, influence operations. We have spoken about this for a couple of years now, but we have not really been able to put a scientific aspect to it. I think that is another aspect which is still wanting some more attention. We have achieved something in this domain, but I think we could do much more in this. Perhaps professionalize it to a great extent through having a professional communication strategy body at the national level and at the state level, which can then coordinate this entire activity as far as the people are concerned.
Thank you very much for joining us today, sir. Your answers were indeed enlightening, and what you mentioned about how Pakistan would react to this entire scenario. You mentioned about grassroots democracy and what the army needs to do in the future, people-centric operations. All these will have our viewers thinking. I thank you once again, sir, and I wish, on behalf of Republic Media Network, all our viewers a very happy New Year. Jai Hind.